Welcome to the channel. Thank you everyone for tuning in. So in today's video, I'm giving you guys the full review of this iPose IX&DAO serica homage. In the unboxing, I was blown away. I'll be honest, this watch ticked so many boxes. It's built amazingly well, and over the past few days I've had this watch. I haven't took it off wrist, so I've got to know this watch quite well, and I've got all my observations ready for this full review. Now, every now and then AliExpress come out with some amazingly well-made watches, amazing value for money, and I think this is one of those watches where it's definitely set the bar yet again. And the main thing with this watch, I've got to tell you straight off the bat so you don't miss it, is the fact that you can get this with a Swiss Serica SW200 for around £250, and that is incredible. If you look at all the other brands that do offer Serica SW200 movement options, they're all around the £300 mark, if not a bit more, around £350. But with this iPose, they've brought the bar down yet again, and you can get this for around £260. Now, if you go on the store right now or in a couple of days, depending on when this video was released, you do have a £25 coupon, so bringing the watch price down to £233 for a Swiss-made Serica SW200 movement. That is absolutely incredible. Now, this is the PT5000 version. It was a bit cheaper, and as I said in the unboxing, I was very close to buying the SW200. However, I thought, let's be smart, because I don't really know how good the watch is, so it's no point having a great movement if the watch turned out to be rubbish. Now, already there is a version 2 available for pre-order, and I got in touch with the store that I purchased this from, asking them what the version 2 basically entails. It wasn't very clear. It was just alignment. So they're saying that alignment is better because they had a few issues with some alignment issues, obviously. But with this particular model, I have no alignment issues. I think somebody mentioned that the pip looks a bit off center, but it actually doesn't. And I think that is perfectly spot on. So with this full review, the specs and dimensions will be on screen as I covered them in the unboxing. And I'm going to take you through all the features and some of the things which I've noticed as I've had the watch, couple of observations and any points for improvement. So first and foremost, with regards to the dial options, you've got a few different colors, all quite nice to look at. The colors aren't overpowering, they're not too far out there. They're very much toned down. You've got blues and whites, blacks, different variations between bezel and dial. But one thing to note here is, they've really thought about this, because on every single dial option, you do have a color match date wheel. So for the black dial, you've got a black date wheel. For the dial with the blue bezel, you've also got blue texted date wheel, and you do have a California dial. I think they call it a limited edition, which is actually dateless. So I think that's quite an interesting touch, because we find a lot of AliExpress watches, they do be missing the matching date wheels, etc. So that just goes to show that the guys who come together to kind of produce this watch, they've paid quite a lot of attention to it. Now, touching on that point of the people who made this, they have done something which AliExpress watches do quite a lot, is that confusing branding and name. And in the unboxing, I said it doesn't really matter, but since then I have got to find out what it actually is. So the watch is actually called IX&DAO. And I still think it's maybe two friends that have made this watch, and they are called IX&DAO. I could be wrong, but that's just the way it comes across to me. Now, where the iPose comes in, it actually says Friends of iPose. So I think there's a watch community within China, and their header is iPose, and I think it consists of like watch enthusiasts and watch brands. So this is where that iPose link comes in. I personally think iPose is easier to say than IX&DAO, because if you turn the watch over, you'll also see IX&DAO on the back, and I think if they had this IX&DAO on the dial as a logo, that's something which would have made it a deal breaker for most. But iPose is probably something a bit fitting. I think it sounds a bit better, so who knows how they'd continue when they do make a next watch. So coming back to this, the particular version I have is a white dial. It does have some silvery specks in there, which you can see under some magnification and close-up and different lighting. Now, one of the things amazing with this dial is the fact that they use 50 layers of lume, and you can tell that when you turn the watch on its side, and you can see some of these raised markers. But what that does is gives this watch incredible day lume. If you come from outside to inside, that lume is shining very bright. I'll put up the lume shot at this point, and you'll see that this lume runs awesomely bright with all those layers of see-through super luminova, incredible glow. And with the way that the dial is set up and the lume on the handset, you'll find, because the markers are towards the inner of the dial, that hour hand lume and the minute hand lume kind of touches those on the inside of the dial, which is a very nice visual, and it's something you'll definitely see glowing very bright for a very long time. Now, looking at the dial design and the watch design, I'm not going to comment on that at all because we know it's homaging the serica. So all the hard work was done by the serica. But obviously with iPose or IX&DAO, it's all about execution for them, right? It's all good and well copying and pasting a dial, but we've seen many times before that the execution is very poor on some watches. So it's all about how well they kind of build that, how well they copy that, using what kind of materials and the overall fit and finish. So moving on to the bezel, one of the key things you want to look at is obviously how well it rotates, and I gave you a little preview of that in the unboxing. A very nice polished coin edge. It's good grip considering how low profile that coin edge is, and it rotates superbly. The right type of friction, the right amount of friction should I say, right type of sound, very nice positive clicks. And yet there's no problem in that functionality. This watch gives you so much, whereas every feature that we're going to look at is actually really well done, as you'll find out throughout the review. The bezel itself is ceramic, but then you also got this steel insert, so it's a split bezel. You've got minutes, hours printed on the minutes in red, which is I think a nice nod to that red text that you get on the dial. I really like that use there. And the pip itself, now the website states a pip is a sapphire lens. You probably don't need it, right? It's not needed at all. You don't need sapphire in the pip, but if it actually is, that's incredible. I've not seen that on many watches. The markers, also the graduation start from 40 up to 60. I don't exactly know why that is, but I think on the actual serica, they actually start from the 9-hour marker or the 45-minute mark and go up to 12. Now the watch dial is broken up slightly with that black minute track against that white dial. Got amazing legibility, as you can see, with these oversized hands. You know, kind of similar to Omega style, and the whole watch does give me Omega vibes. So serica didn't really originate an original design. There's a lot of strong cues from the vintage Omega watches and maybe amongst others as well. But in terms of execution from iPose, I'm just going to stick to calling them iPose, guys. I find it so much easier to say than IX&DAO. Yeah, they've done it really well. Date window at the 6 gives you some sort of symmetry on the dial. Really good to look at. And as you can see, the main thing with it being a dive watch, the legibility is amazing. Now moving on to the case finish, again, very nice, impressive. The lugs do have this brushing, which makes it look like you've got twisted lugs, but the lugs aren't twisted at all. So you'll find that fine brushing along the side of the lug, and then you'll get this polished highlight which goes along the side. You've got soft satin-like brushing which goes along the side of the case. Again, very crisp lines, and that profile, I like how it curves. Good downturn on those lugs. It's going to give you a very comfortable fit on your wrist. The crown itself is around 7.5 millimeters, so good size crown. It is a little thin, but because the bezel doesn't actually protrude over the case as much, your fingers don't touch the bezel when rotating, so it's quite easy to grip and obviously pop out. And with this particular PT5000, I think it's actually a good movement, because on the winding there's no friction in that sense. It's usually the ones that are bad, you can tell, you know, that you do have to put a bit extra force while winding them, but this one is normal, you know, similar to SW200s, etc. So I'm pleased to see that. I also put the movement on the time grapher, running extremely well. I'll put it through 4 different positions, and we saw figures like -5, -7, -2, and 0. So it's quite tight. Amplitude was over 300 degrees, and the beat error remained at 0 or 0.1. So it's a very good movement they've used. I don't think it's regulated, but it's definitely been QC checked. If you want to get it, I'd definitely go for the SW200 version because they've made it that much more affordable, coming in at £230 with the discount codes. Now, when it comes to the strap, I'm not a fan of shark mesh straps at all. However, this strap is very different. One of the things which stood out when I saw the watch initially was the fact that, you know, this mesh strap was linked into that bracelet, sort of becoming like integrated, which I preferred way over the standard mesh straps. Now, this one in particular is very fine. Just look how fine those links are. And they've also been kind of straightened out from the top, so you get a very straight, you know, finish here, sort of like fish scales or tiny little scales that you can see. And that is very smooth as well. Great brushing on there. That reflects light beautifully. It's also tapered nicely, 20 millimeters down to 16. And if you turn the strap over, you'll see little ridges that they've kind of put into this strap, just to help it catch when you do close the clasp. The clasp itself is brushed, small enough, but this is where I think I found a limitation of this strap in terms of practicality. I am one which regularly takes my watch off throughout the day. I don't get my watches wet. I don't know why, I never have. So when I find myself removing this watch multiple times through the day, it was just awkward getting it back on, because of course with those steel bracelets and those clasps, you know, pushers or flip locks are very easy to take off. You can do it one-handedly. This one, you've got to pay a bit more attention to it. You've got to like loop this through. So it's not as quick. So I find that a bit of a hindrance, which would make me want to take it off this strap eventually and try it on different straps, which is no issue at all, because I feel this particular dial option is an absolute strap monster. I mean, the others maybe as well, but what I have in hand, it's an absolute strap beast. I'll give you guys an example. I've put it over 5 different straps, I believe. It looks great on a leather strap. It looks even better on a tropical FKM rubber strap, a very sporty version. It also looks great on something vibrant like a red FKM tropical strap. As you can see, it looks great on there with the white dial and black bezel combination with those red accents. And it looks even great on like a fabric nylon strap. And then the last one I think I tried it on was a Paratrooper French NATO strap, which is very fitting if it was the original, of course, but it looks great on that color option as well. So very diverse watch, very dynamic range of straps, you know, and the one there is built well. It's just that slightly impractical. And I had one more observation in terms of a possible issue with this watch. When we turn the watch around and you look at these lugs, I find it quite sharp. Not enough to cause damage, of course, but enough for you to kind of feel it. Look at the downturn here. You can see just how like sharp that case is. Just that edge is very prominent, and definitely feels edgy, a touch sharp as well. Luckily the points aren't sharp because they would definitely dig in. But you know, while I wore it, could I feel it? Yes, I'd feel it now and then. I was made aware slightly that that is a bit edgy than it needs to be, and that could do with that, you know, final bit of buffing out, polishing, or just like a little deburr. I really, you know, want watches or watchmakers to actually look at fit and finish, or sorry, feel in hand, because I definitely don't like edgy cases. So that's something they could obviously look at, look to improve on. But in terms of the finishing on top side of the case, you don't get any of that. So there has been some attention to there, but just probably missed out on the bottom of the case. So in summary, I believe this IX&DAO is very well executed. They've done a great job homaging the serica. They've got a reliable movements in the watch. That SW200 is very appealing, amazing value for money, if not probably the best value for money on AliExpress. And in terms of build quality, 9.5 out of 10. Definitely no issues there. The only thing which is bringing it down slightly is of course the edginess on there, and practicality for me. I think they should have had drill lugs in the case, just to make, you know, strap changes much easier, because this strap, if you keep your watch on, it's okay, but if someone like me that does take it off multiple times in the day, it does become a slight hindrance. But everything else, as you guys can see, the lume, the bezel, you know, all the functional parts of a dive watch that you need, all the things which will be niggles and moans, they don't exist on this watch. You know, color match date wheels, stuff like that. I think that's incredible. Now, even with the V2 coming out, if you've already got a V1 and it's aligned, then don't worry about it. You don't need a V2. I don't think the V2 devalues the first version at all. If that is the only thing that's being improved, just a, you know, bit of alignment, because this is not misaligned. Maybe there were complaints, but I don't know about those complaints. But yeah, great finishing. Overall great watch, and it does fit on the wrist amazingly well. That 47mm lug to lug is spot on for the 6.5-inch wrist, and yeah, as I said, I didn't take it off ever since I unboxed it. So that's it from me today, guys. I hope you enjoyed that review. Let me know your thoughts or comments in the section below. This watch has sold loads already, and let me know if you agree with what I've said or you've got some different observations. So that's it from me. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.